You can renovate your life from the inside out so much faster than you imagine. You just have to make that shift, that energetic shift, start to think differently, behave differently, feel differently, and everything changes. And it doesn't have to take years or decades, and you don't have to get sick for it to happen.
Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I'm your host, Susan Robbins, epigenetic human performance coach. This is where we discuss all things lifestyle, environment, food, exercise, work, mind, and social interaction as they pertain to epigenetic expression in a way that's relatable to everyone. So if you're ready to start viewing you as an individual, take control of your life and health, and get results, buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I'm your host, Susan Robbins, and this is where we talk about everything, lifestyle and environment, and how it relates to our genetic expression. So buckle up today, people. I have one of my favorite guests returning. This is Kate King. Kate and I spoke, it was a few months ago already. I don't even know where the heck the time has gone. And Kate is an expert in trauma, and we talked about trauma and epigenetics, and it was a fantastic conversation. So impactful that I know I have a client that reached out to her after he listened immediately. He even talked about it. He was on my podcast last week, and he even talked about it in the podcast, how he reached out to work with her, wondering where his things originated that he's dealing with. So really great podcast. And I have followed her since on Instagram, and she had done a post on Instagram a little while back, and it was on emotionally unavailable people. And I took 1 second to type a response, and I messaged her right away, and I said, "Okay, you need to come back on and talk about this," because I think we have becoming a much more emotionally unavailable society. And I see it in my professional life, personal life, and humans, it's not the way to go. And so Kate said, yes, let's have a discussion about this. So Kate, just to refresh everybody on her background, 15 plus years as a licensed professional counselor prior to becoming a radiant life coach. She's a board certified art therapist, artist, author, fellow traveler along the meandering journey of life. I just love that. She's a founder and owner of the Radiant Life Project, and her mission is to create an empowering ripple effect with her healing strategy that teaches us how to activate an inner spark for undeniable radiance in life with personal growth, books, retreats, workshops, inspirational public speaking, creative consulting, individual coaching, and podcasting. So, which is like great. So grateful she's here. What's really cool is her work incorporates a fusion of brain sciences, diverse psychology teachings, spiritual practices, creative expression, and attuned connection to provide a unique, effective strategy for the healing, growth, and freedom that come with authentic living, which we talk about all the time on here. And that's why I connected so much with Kate when we talked the first time. Her passion, her utmost passion, is to teach others how to discover their truest selves and intentionally create and sustain a life that radiates with possibility, creativity, wholeness, and meaningful purpose. Kate also has a book, The Radiant Life Project, and she's winning all kinds of awards for this. And she should, because it's a fantastic book. And we'll have in the show notes where that's available. You can get it on Amazon and elsewhere, but I'm so happy to have her back. Welcome back, Miss Kate King.
Thank you. And thanks for that lovely introduction. It's always so fun to hear the reflection of the work. So thanks.
Absolutely. And then you're making a difference, right? When if one person gets what you're talking about, you take a breath and go, this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
And we know that it's more than one of us that gets you. So that's the beauty. So we don't have all day, because we could talk about this stuff all day, as we were chatting before. So I want you to just jump right in and just address this one of the, we have a few things we're going to talk about, but this emotionally unavailable people. And like I said, I'm noticing it more, and I don't know, is it stemming from technology? You used to be able to call customer service, get through. Now it's these damn chat bots. Even a chat used to at least there get a person. Now it's a chat bot. And I find myself, I'm making a phone call trying to get customer service. As soon as it picks up, I'm just yelling, and I'm literally yelling, speak with an agent, speak with an agent. You don't have any human contact. So is this pulling people to making people pull away and become more emotionally unavailable? I'm sure there's other things. So I'm just going to let you take over because you are the guru here. But those are some of the kind of things that were going through my mind. And also in the singles world, there's a lot of emotionally unavailable people. How do we weed through them? When do you know to walk out of a relationship, whether it's a personal, romantic, work, that don't work because they don't get it. So that's where I wanted to start and let you go. Take
So yeah, thank you. And I'm sure you're right that it's happening in so many different areas of life. And I think there's a lot of different factors that are contributing. Technology and AI certainly are non-human presences that we're interfacing with a lot these days. And so I think our very human nervous system sometimes shuts down when we're not being matched with the same. And I also think there's something to be said for the more we get disconnected from ourselves, the less capable we are to connect with each other. So much of my work is about first starting within and then having that healing that you've activated inside yourself ripple out into your connections. So if you're dealing with a person who is burned out, completely exhausted, politically stressed and feeling divided from those they care about in their community, facing this hustle culture at work where there's no rest and there's no breaks. They're not feeling creatively inspired. They're not feeling connected to other people. They're going to shut down and they're going to hibernate. They're going to go to a place that's probably pretty cynical inside themselves where they say, why should I try anyway? It doesn't work. No one else is available. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of getting rejected. I'm tired of getting reprimanded at work. So I'm just safer alone by myself inside my own world. And when you have enough people like that, then you create a trend and enough people who are going inwardly because the outward world feels unsafe starts to create this ripple effect of emotional unavailability. And when someone is emotionally unavailable, there's nothing an external person can do to change that setting or open them up. It has to be reversed from the inside out. And that's the call to therapy, to coaching, to epigenetic work. Because if we notice within ourselves that we're not living at our highest expression, we're not connecting, it's because there's something inside of us that's a barrier. We are standing in our own way. And yes, other people beyond ourselves might not be available to connect with, but there are some other people, so many others out there who are available. Right. They're
yeah,
healthy. Like they're waiting for you. They're looking for you. But if you are not able to connect because you're so fried or numb or tuned into your news feed or tuned out from real life, you're not going to be able to connect with the people whose feelers are reaching out for you.
that just makes the vibration, all those things you just talked about, those things you just listed, really just creates this low vibration energy in you.
Mhm.
And that's what you start to attract is more of the same. So I'll see people on Facebook a lot of the time. Like I said, I'm coming from the singles place. So I see a lot of this where it's, oh my God, I'm just done with dating. I can't do this anymore. All I get is crap. Because this is what they're putting out there too. With this, because of all of this, the emotional unavailability breeds more of that. Do you feel like even people saying hard to make friends at whatever age, just same sex friends. But do you feel like most people are actually aware of the fact that this is what's happening and they need to make change? Or do you feel like they're looking more at it from as external things coming in as opposed to looking internally and saying, I need to change myself? if I want things to change.
I think post-pandemic, the world has split into two. And this has happened in so many different little archetypes, like politically for sure, things are split into two. But I think also there's been this awakening movement that's happened post-pandemic where they're taking stock of their values, they're changing the people they connect to, they're saying no more to toxic relationships, they're really working on themselves, they're buying my book, they're listening to your podcast. And then there's this other subset of people who aren't doing that. They're refusing to wake up. They're pointing fingers of blame. They're avoiding accountability. And I think it's really problematic when these two archetypes clash because the person who is trying to self-reflect is really wanting the other person to do. But if they're not willing to, then they're banging themselves up against a wall and wondering why it hurts when really if that person would go out and seek someone else who was emotionally available and doing the work, then they would have this generative connection that would just create a self-sustaining cycle and they would grow together. But sometimes I think there's this savior complex or the caregiver
The caregiver conundrum.
yeah, where people are like, oh my gosh, I'm self-reflecting, I'm healing, I see from a different perspective than before. If only my partner, my parent, my sibling, my friend could see what I see, then they'd be happier. But you forget that people can only really see what they're ready to see, what their nervous system has unlocked for them. And if they can't see from that perspective, there's nothing you're going to do to help shine light on it. It's like trying to, show someone who's wearing blinders what a beautiful sunset looks like. They have to remove the blinders themselves.
This is why you're back on here. I love these conversations. And you just put things in just the most perfect ways. And it's easy to understand. It's not a lot of psychobabble that you hear from a lot some of the other counselors and stuff. And this isn't off-putting to people, which I love. It really just makes you think, which is why I wanted to have this on. And I was having this conversation hiking with someone on Monday, and they're seeing a friend of theirs is just not healthy, especially physically. And they were saying, how do I help? Susan, I don't know what to do. And I turned and I said, okay, you're asking the person who's a coach and a former cop. All I've wanted to do is help people. And that was my problem because I was one of those with the caretaker conundrum, right? That you can give the information and say, hey, if you want to make a change, here's a great way. Listen to this podcast, read this book, right? Like we just said. But people have to be ready to make any sort of changes. And if they're not there, you have to let that go because that's their choice to be where they are. And it's the hardest thing for that helper type of person that we see these things and we know what they need to do and we want to help, but not everybody's ready. And that's okay because we're all on our own journey. And that, because we're going to be talking about this, people, about how to know when to walk away from things and walk away from people and know that you cannot help everyone you love as much as you want to.
And sometimes that impulse to help people can be distorted inside yourself because it can be a mechanism to avoid facing layers of yourself that make you uncomfortable. So instead, you project this need onto other people, where really, if you were in your healthiest place, if you were operating from true self, someone else's unwillingness to change wouldn't really bother you. You would just feel neutral. So the fact that it does bother you or it breeds resentment inside of you means that it's accessing something inside of you that is unhealed or that needs attention. If it's not a neutral response, it means there's something inside that's reacting.
Wow. I'll bet that just made some people's eyes shoot open. Like, oh God, I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's always a really good invitation if you feel compelled to change someone or help someone and you're feeling this resistance and you're noticing your own resentment, why not just allow them to be a mirror that's reflecting back to you what happens when someone doesn't allow you to help or what happens inside of yourself when your helper capabilities are rejected or turned down? what are you left with? It's just you and your unsatisfied self who doesn't feel useful. And where is that wound originating? So that takes you back into yourself. And if you're the one who's willing to do the work, take it to your journal, take it to your therapist or your coach, and then you could do some fruitful work with the reflection that the unavailable person unknowingly provided for you.
Wow. That's, oh my gosh. Okay. That was mind blowing. How, how do you recognize? Because there's somebody might be having a bad day or a bad week or month or something, right? And is not an emotionally unavailable person. What are the things that you would say to look for in deciphering whether someone is like, is this a person that's emotionally unavailable and likely toxic for me, or someone that's just not in the best place? We know I've talked about it very openly last winter for what, 3 or 4 months. I couldn't be around. There were like two people I could talk to where I just pulled back because I needed to go inside myself. So I wasn't emotionally unavailable. I just needed to pull back at that time. And then you have people that are the legit emotionally unavailable. So how do you tell the difference?
Yeah, you're right that there are seasons. One of my favorite books that talks about that is called Wintering by Catherine May. And it's just a really beautiful writing piece about how sometimes you do need to hibernate and go into yourself and heal on a level that takes you out of the natural flow of connection and community for a while. I think it also needs to be said that different relationships serve different functions in our lives. So you don't need everyone in your life to be emotionally available equally. What the connection you have from your mail delivery person or your kid's teacher or your neighbor isn't necessarily what you're looking for in a partner or in a best friend or a business partnership. So becoming really clear on the very small amount of people who you do truly need emotional availability from. And then, if within that pool of people, you're noticing that there's a consistent and persistent response in your body where somehow you're feeling rejected or denied, your need not being met, you walk away feeling really depleted or empty, or still just yearning for something, some connection, still really not satiated in a way that you would like from someone who's close. That consistency and persistence of feelings like that in your own body are the indicators to me. It's not something that anyone else can tell you. It's something that you feel internally. And it's because you're seeking something from this person and you're showing up with vulnerability and willingness and openness, and you're not being met with the same.
Absolutely. And that's where I think it's so important that we develop this mind body connection. And I'll tell people or my clients that when you have a decision to make, sit with yourself in total quiet and feel into that decision. Don't just think about it because your body will react, whether it's a decision, a thought. If you would take your two options and just say them aloud to yourself, and you can literally feel either that like that cringy moment of thinking about that experience or that person, or just a very peaceful, relaxed. Your body will let you know, but most don't have that connection. So to learn that, like you said, is just pure gold. Another thing you had said, because when you think about these physical reactions that we're having when we're around these people, and I really experienced it this year, that there were certain energies I could not be around. And I had to literally pull back because it made me so uncomfortable, just a physical discomfort. And because there just was not a fit there on that connection level that I'd had prior. And what you had said in one of your Instagram posts, again, that hit me was how we all know this stress lowers the immune system. I preach this all the time. And people just think of stress management, whatever, but it's hugely important. And what you said was 5 minutes of feeling angry or any low vibrational feeling, thought. So despair, anger, like you said, rejected, denied. It's a lower vibration there. Any of that, 5 minutes of that feeling turns off the immune system for 6 hours.
Yeah, it's true. This research actually comes from this is research. This is grounded in science. It comes from the Heart Math Institute. And so speaking of listening to the body, I'm glad you went here because I wanted to talk about brain heart coherence. And that's where this study is coming from. So science has discovered that we have 40,000 neurons, which are brain cells, in our hearts. And at first, this was really perplexing to scientists. Like, why would we have brain cells in our heart? And the more we studied it, the more we realized it's because the heart has the capacity to think independently of the brain in the head. There's also a third brain in the gut, which I know in your physical work with your clients too. So this coherence is about creating harmony between the brains so that you can actually hear the wisdom and the clarity speaking from your heart without all the filters of your ego and your survival plugged into your nervous system, all the things that the mind will confuse, cultural conditioning. What are people going to think of me? Your heart doesn't worry about that. So your thinking ability in your heart gives you this ability to radiate an electromagnetic field from your body that extends 8 to 10 feet beyond yourself. And this is incredible when it comes to connection because we see that when you are in close contact with another person, the electromagnetic field from your heart and theirs from their heart connects with you, with your heart and with your brain. And so when you're connected to somebody who's in a low vibrational state of anger or negativity, or if you are in that place, not only do you feel it, but you're also emanating it. And so when it comes to the biological response to our emotional body, because we are holistic beings, we're not just a head, we're a head and a body and a nervous system and a heart. And we have all of these puzzle pieces that come together perfectly as nature intended. We just need to know how to use it, right? So that study that found that 5 minutes of anger turned the immune system off for 6 hours, it also had a control group that was being studied, and they were prompted to feel the emotions of care for 5 minutes. And what they found was that their immune system not only didn't plummet, it actually continued to elevate for the next 6 hours.
Wow.
So we have this comparison of what anger does and what care does. And there's another study from HeartMath that said that 2 minutes of feeling irritated sets into process 1,500 biological processes in the body that impact stress and negativity inside yourself. So we know that there's a direct correlation between the thoughts we think, the emotions we feel, and the physical health and well-being of our body. And it happens rapidly, and we have complete control over it because we are the captains of these ships. And so we can stop ourselves if we notice, gosh, I'm feeling really angry right now, or wow, this person's really irritating right now. It could be as quickly as just saying, in this moment, I'm going to choose to take some deep breaths. I'm going to feel the energy in my heart, and I'm going to shift this anger to compassion for what's happening with this person in front of me. Instead of feeling angry for them, I'm going to feel curious about them. Or instead of feeling irritated here, I'm going to tune into myself and I'm going to say, what do I need right now to take care of me? And just like that, you start a different biological process and you'll have a different physical result.
It goes to the perception,
Yes, absolutely.
how we choose to perceive things.
Yeah, we're not victims to our environment. This is what epigenetics teaches us. We have full and complete control over the way we perceive our environment and how we have a relationship with this world that we're in. And if you're feeling angry all the time, you're not a victim to that anger. You're choosing it, whether you want to hear it or not. And if you would like to do the work to step down from the high pedestal of victimization that you may have been on, you're going to see your whole life change.
Totally. Totally. So if we go back to the talking about the unavailable people, another thing you had said was about listen to patterns, not words.
Mhm.
Because I think that emotionally unavailable people, I think a lot of them on an unconscious level, they want connection, but they don't know. Do you think this? Am I right here that some of them don't know how to have it in a healthy way because of where they are?
Oh, sure. And I think people generally have the best of intentions. And we don't mean to hurt each other. We don't mean to hurt ourselves. I think it's just these sort of unconscious impulses and patterns that we find ourselves stuck in from unhealed trauma or from relational discord or just from being in this really stressful world that we live in these days. It's a pretty tough time to be alive. And so all of that can impact a person's availability. But when it comes to patterns, you can't trust people's intentions. You have to trust the actual engagement that they offer you. They can have the best of intentions and be incredibly hurtful or really disconnected. And it doesn't mean that they wanted to be disconnected. It means they don't have the capacity to give you what you need. And sometimes that's all that you need to be able to realize this person isn't wrong or bad. They're not even necessarily toxic. They're just not meeting my needs. And I'm aware of what my needs are and I honor them. So I'm going to find a way to meet them. If this person can't meet them for me, I'm going to meet them for myself, or I'm going to help find connection that does fulfill that need for me. And it doesn't really matter what the other person intended because they may just have more healing to do before they can be accessible and available on the level that you need.
Yeah, and I see so much nowadays. Also, the word narcissist being tossed around. People don't. There are definitely narcissists out there, but that term is just thrown around so casually anymore, where I think what we're seeing are emotionally unavailable people,
Yeah.
not this huge amount of narcissistic people that we're supposed to have out there. Yes, there are. I was married to one, and so I had to diagnose narcissists. And someone will say, "This person's a narcissist." I'm going, I don't know about that. But I think they're just maybe they're an attachment style of the avoidant, could be something like that, which is emotionally unavailable. But how do you feel like another thing you had touched on that I'd seen in your writings or your videos, going non-contact, how to go non-contact, when to go non-contact. I've done quite a bit of this lately, and I'll tell you, as hard as it is to do it at that time, because there might be a history there, whether it's family. I just had it come up with a family member again that I had to say, I can't, just to save my own sanity. It just doesn't feel good. Tell us what you think are the best ways to go non contact and how to know when it's time to cut that cord and basically save yourself so that you can have a better quality of life.
So going no contact with someone implies that you're not able to have either a healthy relationship with them or a healthy separation from them. In a perfect world, there could be two people, be they partners or friends or family members who are just like, "You know what? I love you. Thank you for the history that we've shared, but this isn't aligned anymore." And the other one could say, "I wish you the best. Thank you for all the memories we shared and maybe we'll meet again." This is this is the fantasy world. In real life, so often there isn't that ability to be able to just recognize misalignment. And so there is an important distinction that not all toxic relationships, like not all misaligned relationships are toxic, basically.
Sure.
But
Sure.
all toxic relationships are misaligned. It's never healthy to be in a toxic relationship. And if it feels like you've found a healthy way to be in a toxic relationship, it's because you're self abandoning. It's because you found a way to self sacrifice to keep the peace, and that's not sustainable. And you're playing into the toxic dynamic by not showing up for yourself and for your own needs. So I will just make that distinction that not all misaligned relationships are toxic. Sometimes it's just not a good match. For the ones that are truly toxic, you have to have that consistency and the persistence of the toxicity. Because if there's just a time or two when someone's been really volatile or potentially abusive, not okay in any world, but also maybe not toxic. They might have been in a difficult time. They might have been going through something. So that can be more easily forgiven than a person who has consistent, persistent behaviors that are harmful to you. And harmful to you is a big umbrella that can be physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, relationally. If someone is hurting you, if you walk away from an engagement with that person feeling wounded on some level of your being, and if this is persistent and consistent, it's toxic. There might be a way for you to create healing with this person in therapy and dialogue if they're willing to self-reflect. And like you said, narcissism is so overused, but let's use a narcissistic personality as an example here. The biggest block for a narcissist is that they have the inability to self-reflect. If they could only self-reflect, they could heal. We all have the capacity to heal, but the barriers with certain personality disorders are so profound that they're not able to really see the role that they have played, take accountability, make the amends that are necessary to repair the damage they've caused, and then start from a healthy baseline. If you are in a toxic relationship with someone who can do that, if someone says, oh my gosh, I see that I've been really damaging. I see that this is really hurtful to you. I want to make this right. Let's work together. It's like the jackpot.
Sure.
It's not common, but it does happen. So in the relationships where that doesn't happen, where you have a family member or you have a partner or a friend or a professional relationship, really this is all relationships. So toxicity happens everywhere and can be anywhere in your life. If there is someone who's, it's all your fault. I don't know what to say. I don't do anything. You're the one who's dysfunctional. You need help. You're sick in the head. I'm perfect. No one's ever had this problem with me before. These are all gaslighting comments, but they're also indicators that the person doesn't have compassion for your experience. They're not curious about why you're hurting. They don't even really care. They just want you to stop being the squeaky wheel that's causing some sense of inconvenience in their life. And so that would be a toxic person for sure in a toxic relationship. And usually when a person gets to the point of no contact, they have tried everything possible that they know how to do to repair, to fix. They've probably self-abandoned to a degree where their health might be on the line. And so often people at that juncture of should I go no contact or not, they feel this ultimatum where it's, I either have to choose them or me, because if I choose them, I'm going to go down a spiral of disease. This might kill me, right? Versus I got to choose me, and maybe it's going to create some damage and maybe it's burning a bridge. Maybe I'm going to have a long road ahead of me, but I'm choosing myself and I know that I'm going to heal and be better because of it, with or without that person.
This just resonated right to my bone
Mm.
as you said this. Wow. Another thing you had touched on that I'd seen previously was why people don't treat you how you want to be treated. And I think this kind of plays into this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to say more specifically to what you mean, or do you want me to speak generally to that?
I think it was when I heard that after, and I, looking at it again from the unavailable people type of thing. And as you said, people are generally abandoning themselves to
Mm-hmm.
please someone else. And then they say, I can't believe they're treating me this way. But
Right.
you've already taught them how to treat you by abandoning who you are.
Yeah, I think it was Oprah maybe who first said, we teach people how to treat us. And we do that with our actions and our behaviors and our words. We also teach people what we are no longer willing to tolerate. with our boundaries and our limits and
Mm.
word no. And it's hard for people to set boundaries
Yeah,
limits and use the word no.
super hard.
Most
Yeah.
people don't like boundaries, especially people who benefit from your not having any.
Right?
If someone is invested in your smallness, your compliance, or your sort of brokenness so that they can feel big while you feel small, that person's not going to want you to heal. They're going to want you to stay as small and broken as possible so that they can feel large because they don't feel like it's okay if there's two big people in the room. You want to be in relationships with people who want your bigness, who believe that there's enough space and power for both of you, that if we are all big, if we're all healthy, that's what we want. We don't need someone to feel small so that we can feel big. So that's another indication of a toxic relationship for sure. If you just feel like you're constantly being squashed and belittled so that they can feel big, it's not a good sign. And it's definitely a pattern. That would be a pattern to look out for. And it's probably going to counter the person's words because they'll deny that. No one's going to admit that they want you to be small so they can be big. That's something in their behaviors and their patterns. But in general, if someone is not treating you the way that you want to be treated, my first question is, have you communicated to them how you want to be treated? And
Mm.
so often people are like, they should just know.
They
You know,
should know.
you can treat
Because we're
people.
all mind readers, aren't we?
So we're not all mind readers, and we also
Jeez.
all have very different ideas of what connection looks like. The very famous book, The Five Love Languages, tapped in on this. Like, we give and receive love in unique ways. And if you're a physical touch person, but you're married to a words of affirmation person, you're going to need to say, I need some hugs. I need you to hold my hand. And that person is, oh, all the love letters I've been writing you aren't enough. And you're like, they're
Yep.
great, but I really need touch. So that's sort of a benign example of how you can communicate your needs to somebody and say, what I really need from you is this thing. And if you don't know what your needs are, then you need to go to therapy and figure them out. You need to go to your journal and get really clear on what your needs are so that you can then communicate them. Now, if you have communicated your needs ad nauseum to this person, and either they refuse to meet your needs or they continue to forget what your needs are or neglect them at all or pretend that you don't have needs at all, that would indicate a potential toxic relationship because they don't care about your needs. They don't care that you have them. They don't care what they are. And they really don't intend to meet them because that's not their objective. Their objective is about you meeting their needs. And if you've
Mm.
played into that dynamic, then it's your responsibility as well because you've co-created that toxic relationship by complying with it. And that doesn't mean you have to stick with it. You can decide at any point, this doesn't work for me anymore. I'm not under a contract. And even if you are like a marital vow, right? You have a contract in marriage, but you can change your mind. There is no contract on this earth that doesn't let you change your mind and doesn't let you reevaluate who you want to be and who you want to be with and how you want to be treated. So you are never too deep into a relationship to change your mind about how you want that relationship dynamic to flow. Sometimes you just have to do the really courageous work of facing the problem and saying, no more, no more of this. This is not okay with me. Either this changes or I'm gone.
And if you keep seeing the same patterns with the same people all of the time, maybe then it's time, instead of just walking away from them, to start walking toward yourself and say, I'm the common denominator here. What's happening? And why do I keep making these choices? Am I subconsciously going towards these people that are emotionally unavailable? Either I'm bringing them in through my own shitty low vibration, right? Or am I bringing them in because I know it's safe for me because I'm going to be able to cut and run because I'm not emotionally available?
Yes, bingo. Emotionally unavailable people attract each other and then blame each other for the thing that they themselves are putting out. Yeah, if you're noticing that you're attracted to emotionally unavailable partners, or if you have a pattern in friendship where you keep getting to the same point where you have to walk away from friends, it's something that you need to look at in yourself. Absolutely. But if you look at your life and you're like, gosh, I've got a network full of incredible friends that I've had for long and short periods. I've had relationships with partners that have felt healthy. I have some working relationship with colleagues that feel really solid. But there's this one relationship in my life that's really hurting me, and nothing that I can do ever seems to free me. That's actually an indication that it's not you, it's them. And you do have the right to walk away from that. It's causing severe distress in your life, and it will start to leak into all of your other relationships as well, because all those lovely people who care about you will show up to support you, and they're going to start reflecting to you how unwell you seem with this other person in your life. And so that can also be an indication is when your trusted, most loved people say, hey, when you date this person or when you go home and visit your parents, you turn into somebody I don't know and you don't seem okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah, so much of this just resonates. And it made me think after my last divorce. I said, okay, so my picker hasn't been good, but I am the common denominator. What am I doing? The cut and run. I found that I was actually more emotionally unavailable. And I think people might be able to see that in someone else, but it hits home too much to recognize or to admit when you realize that maybe you're the one that has closed off.
But that is the best news in the world because when you realize that it's you, then it's fair game for you to work on because
That's a,
you
yeah,
cannot help other people's issues. That's on them. But when you realize it about yourself, I don't care how big and overwhelming it might feel. You can break it down into manageable parts, but now you know what the work is.
now you know. Absolutely. It's uncomfortable at first. Oh my God, I'm really like this. But then it's very empowering in a way to say, I'm like this and I have the choice to not be like this anymore.
And
What
I
do I
ask
need
for
to do?
help. Right? I don't have to figure this out on my own. Clearly, I don't know how to do this by myself because I keep repeating it. Who can help me? What book is written about this? What podcast talks about it? What coach specializes in it? Ask for
Mhm.
help. We don't have to do everything ourselves. We get to share each other's gifts. So
Absolutely.
if there's a deficit somewhere, go find the exact supplement to help you heal.
And even with my work, like using the pH 360, the different health types tend to have different love languages according to their predominant hormones. We don't think about this. We don't see where a lot of this is biologically driven. Some are more autonomous. They don't want or need too much contact, too much. They're it's too much overwhelm for them. They're going to need more personal time. And that's where they're going to re-energize. Others, like me, we need that contact. And it's not being needy. It's just knowing that I need contact. And I know when I'm pulling back from contact, I'm very stressed because it's not who I am, how I'm biologically driven, that when the stress is that high for some of these health types, that pullback is definitely detrimental and really a sign of there's way too much stress in this person at this time. So to
Yes.
understand from an epigenetic standpoint who you are, understand from a psychological standpoint who you are, spiritually. There's so many different avenues now. I turn people energy healing, trauma, whatever it is you need to do. There's so many avenues. Let's just start taking one, and like you said, breaking it down, and then you start working with that, and then you can move on to the next. And we've talked about this before when people say, I've done the work. Okay, then you haven't because we don't stop. And when you keep progressing with it, and that's what it's about, keep progressing and taking step by step each day to
Mhm.
make yourself that better person and be present because that's where I feel is just there's so many that are lacking is being present with other humans in their jobs anywhere because they're out of sync with themselves and then they're inviting in these unavailable characters to play along and then then it becomes more toxic like you said. um fascinating conversation. What would you like to leave us with some parting words of wisdom with this conversation? Because I guarantee you out there, people like share this podcast because people need to hear this. We don't need to be emotionally unavailable. We are not, as a species, humans, meant to be by ourselves. We're supposed to be communal. And in those times of extreme stress, reach out instead of, yeah, take the time you need to go inside yourself, but don't close off from everybody and shut yourself down to no possibility of having that connection.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Two things come up for me. The first is don't hide from yourself. Be honest with yourself about the work that is yours to heal. Because if you're hiding from yourself, if you're in denial or avoidance of your own healing, it's not helpful to you. It's not helpful to your relationships. It's not helpful to your future self. Like, just face it. Just get courageous and look at it. And if you need someone to hold your hand while you look at it, find that professional or
Don't
find
aim
that.
us out here. Right?
Yes. So piece number one is don't hide from yourself. Look at yourself, shine the light into those dark corners and start the healing from the inside out. Piece number two, I wrote in my book about this because it was such a profound experience, but I was driving one day and on a billboard, I saw this message that said, "What you want wants you." And I was at the time, this was a while ago, I was waiting to hear if I was going to get into grad school or not. And I was really anxiously awaiting that acceptance letter. And that billboard was like, okay, what you want wants you. And this applies to relationships too. The relationship that you want, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a partnership, any kind of relationship, it is out there and they are looking for you too, but they can't find you if you are covered underneath all kinds of unhealed layers, if you're emotionally unavailable, if you're burned out, if you're not accessible, the relationship you want won't find you. And the same goes for you finding them. So the best thing you can do to make those relationships a reality is to show up at the vibration of the relationship that you're willing to attract. And then all you have to do is just keep your eyes open and see it when it lands in your lap, because it will, because like we live inside of a giant algorithm, which is called energy. And just like your algorithm of your news feed is going to show you what you put out there and what you look for most, energy will show you what you're putting out and looking for as well. So what you want wants you. You just have to make yourself available for it.
I love it. I love it. This has been such an awesome conversation. And I know it hit home with a lot of people. I know it certainly hit home with me. And I'm so grateful that everything you're saying to do, I've been doing it. Thank you. Thank you. Because it makes a huge difference because I would have been even a year ago on the other side of it that you're talking about. And I
Yeah.
was for many years. And I'm very open and honest, raw and real on this show to let people know that it can hit all of us at any time. It can be a good part of our lives. Um, we we have the power,
And
like you
it can
said.
change fast. Like you can
Oh,
totally you can renovate your life from the inside out so much faster than you imagine. You just have to make that shift, that energetic shift, start to think differently, behave differently, feel differently, and everything changes. And it doesn't have to take years or decades, and you
yeah.
don't have to get sick for it to
No,
happen. Right?
mm-mm.
It can
It's
happen.
so quick. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's so quick. And I would say, advice wise, the first thing to do, turn off the news. And I don't care what side you're on. There's stuff coming from both sides, the middle, everything. And it's this barrage. And now we've got the hurricane, another hurricane coming. And take what you need to see what's happening out there. But tune out from the BS because it will lower your vibration faster than anything.
Yep. Turn off the news and turn off the news feed. Stop scrolling.
Scrolling.
Go outside, go for a walk, read an inspirational book, connect with someone you love with. Stop scrolling, please. Let's all do that.
I I was telling Kate in the beginning yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday, And I've been in just a lower vibrational to where I reached out to my friend Kelly yesterday and I said, all right, my vibration's low and I don't like it. And he said, there's some energetic shifts going on, energy changes on your birthday, and you have to get comfortable with it. And I'm like, it's not, I don't like being comfortable with it because I'm used to a very high vibration and this just feeling this. So what did I do? I went and hiked. I had taken the day off anyway, just kept it open and then spent time with a non-toxic friend who's just fabulous, good energy. And then by the end of the day, the whole vibration had changed. And here I am today, waking up saying, oh my gosh, right now I feel it. I had to let go of, you have to let go of, this is how I should be feeling, or this is where I am right now. How do I work with it? Is it affecting, did I feel like it affected relationships around me? Sure. Even just in those few days, right?
Yeah.
The phone stops ringing, the texts stop coming because it's the energy you're putting out there, it becomes a repellent.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that maybe I'm not being too available right now emotionally. So the more, and that this is all within a couple day period that I'm feeling all this because I'm that much in tuned. And my point with telling people this again is that's how quickly you can change it when you start having awareness. So start creating that awareness. Talk to Kate, talk to me. There's plenty of us out there. Read her amazing book. It's still on my nightstand. It's a go-to. So how can people find you? And I will say that we will have, once again, all of her contact information in the podcast notes. And then how else? Let's tell them in case they're just listening and they want to just tune in right now.
Basically, just go to theradiantlifeproject.com. That's my hub. It's got all my podcast episodes, lots of writings, resources, and a free resource library as well with like tools and things you can do at home. You can find my book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy your books online. I will send you a discount code to add into the show notes so if you buy it directly from my publisher. And I believe it's a 20 or 30% discount.
Okay.
And you can find me on the socials, The Radiant Life Project. I just try to post out helpful, real, relatable things, and I hope they help.
And that you do, which is why you're back here again, because I saw one, right? Like you had to come back on. So you know it's going to happen again. You're just going to be a regular on here.
I love our talks anytime.
Absolutely. And I love working with you. We're collaborating with a client and yeah, you're just a joy and just a great energy you bring to everything you do. So thank you for that. Thank you for coming on again today. And everybody go out there, be your most authentic selves and make it a great day. Thanks for tuning in and share this podcast. People need to hear this.
Thanks so much for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed this week's episode, I'd love for you to share it with someone who would find the information useful. Also, if you can leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, it'll help the information get out to others. You can check out my podcast site and sign up for my newsletter for updates and upcoming shows, and that link is in the show notes below. And go make it a great day and let your authentic self shine.